Well, hello, good evening to all of you. And tonight we're going to talk about the beautiful event that is happening every spring in nature in general here. You know, you see all these mountains with these beautiful bright green tops. Those are poplar, tulip poplars. The oak are behind. They have a very different aspect, beside the fact that bud break quite a bit after the poplar. But right now, everything is coming back to life. Everything was dormant, resting, and the grapes as well. They do wake up. The first to wake up are actually Chardonnay and Nebbiolo. Cabernet Sauvignon, on the other hand, as of today, is not even open. The buds are just starting to swell. But I will show you some vines of Chardonnay and some vines of Nebbiolo as a reference to show you what's happening, to show you what happened a couple weeks ago, and also what will happen in the future. I'll try to explain what is the outcome so far with the spring and what we hope to see weather-wise. So let's just go here to check a vine of Chardonnay. Chardonnay, as I said, is among the first variety to bud break. And before we go into more details about what you see now growing, I want you to understand that actually these buds that we see now opening, breaking, were actually formed in the last year growing season. This shoot last year started from one bud this tiny. There is one here, perhaps ahead of the other. Oh, look at that nice little ladybug. And inside here already are formed, are actually the cluster are already getting bigger. I chose this vine because it has all the elements I want to talk about. So let's start from how does this bud form? Now you see this vine, these buds, they're called, they bud break, they break the bud, they start forming. This bud itself actually was created by the vine in the last year growing season. So stay with me. This shoots you see here is actually a woody structure. It's very firm. This shoot here actually is very soft, young green tissue. The shoots will elongate through the growing season. It will show its clusters. It will produce leaves, and it will produce internodes. Internodes actually is the distance between these two nodes, 1 and 2. They're called internodes. So opposite to this side of the internode, the vine will start forming the bud that we see now in the growing season. There are even situations when actually, if we have a growing season that is very rainy season, the tissue actually, they are generating a bit at a faster speed. So there are chances when in this growing season we have this condition, the buds, they don't form as fruitful for the following season. In particular, Viognier does that. What happened then is that you have actually buds that they grow, but they don't carry clusters, or they carry less clusters. So the influence on this year success of bud break depends also from last year growing season. But let's go back now to this season. As the vines start bringing in through the root system water and nutrients, all are translocated to the vine, and the pressure that is put onto the vascular system is such that the buds will start swelling. And this is, here you see the swelling stage. We consider that a bud break per se. The next step, you start having the showing of a first leaf open, like that. Between this stage and that stage, the vine can tolerate actually in this stage temperature that can go into the upper 20s. This bud here instead, it will not tolerate temperature under 31 degrees. So what happened about 2 weeks ago, we had a couple of nights were very cold. We reached temperature here in the low to mid 20s, and the vines, most of the vines were at the stage of what I show you here. So 2 weeks ago, basically, these buds they were at this stage here, okay? They were still closed. And so we actually had these cold nights. We had the windmills moving because actually at a bit higher elevation, we were at about 28 to 30 degrees. In lower elevation, we were in the low 20s. So by moving the wind with the machines from higher elevation to lower elevation, we were able to keep temperature in the mid upper 20s. Despite all of the machine, we have 17 on the farm, we did lose a few buds, and actually let me try to find one. There are very few. Let's see what we can find. No. Okay, here they are. You see here, these are two buds that actually were at that stage I showed you earlier, and you can see how the color itself, it's more of a rust brown, rust red, and this in particular even better shows. It's like a brownish. As soon as I touch it, it falls off. All the tissues are dead. You see there is no green tissue. And what will happen now that is in this position here, the structure of the bud itself is quite complex. There is what is called a primary bud, and then there are secondary buds, one on each side, and the vine actually will put energy into the secondary buds, and soon we're going to start seeing some new growth. The issue is that in this new growth from the secondary buds, most variety, they are not fruitful. They just guarantee to the vine a tool to grow and climb and take space. You remember, vines in the wild, they're not designed really to propagate via ripening clusters. They prefer actually put energy into growing branches, climbing on other on trees or vegetation. That's their better form of taking space. I also want to show you now another shoot that actually will bring to understanding what I'm talking about with the secondary bud. And actually, okay, so I found one, actually I found two on the same shoot. You see the primary bud right here, and there is a secondary bud that is taking over. This also is another bud that was, no, actually this one is good. I can feel it is nice and firm. But yeah, that's what it is. That's the secondary bud. So this one will have two nice, quite big size cluster. This one instead, being a secondary, will carry perhaps one or two cluster, but they're going to be about half the size of the fruit comes from the primary. And this is Chardonnay, which is notorious to have a second crop in case you have a frost. Although Nebbiolo has 0, as well as other varietals. So that gives you also an appreciation how wine, different variety, they do look different, they taste different, they have different characteristics. And so this is just one of them that most people never hear about it, because it's something very unique, very specific, and very important for us when we have a frost occurrence of Chardonnay. Let's pretend that we go through a frost and perhaps 30% of our primary buds are killed. We're going to have those buds producing a secondary shoot, which will be behind in the growing season from the primary buds. So the fruit that is carried by the secondary cluster, it will be up to 3 or 4 weeks behind in ripening. In that case, it means a lot more work to us because we will go through the vineyard and pick by hand the fruit from primary clusters. Then we will do a second picking of fruit from the secondary clusters. And that's the effort that you have to make to produce a great quality wine, to have that even ripening. So to us it's a lot more work, but also is a way that still to be thankful even in an adverse condition to be able to carry a crop, because we're after that after all. By looking and going through these couple of rows, I don't think we have lost more than perhaps 2-3%. This is another dry shoot you can see here. And there's a primary, secondary bud right there just starting. And let's see if I find another one. Here's another one. So I have to go maybe 3 or 4 vines before I find one. Each vine has about 20 buds. So I see 60 buds, I find 2. 2 out of 60 is about 3.5%. So it's very minimal. It's not gonna be so far a big impact at all. We also do have a tendency to prune our vines, this of the canes, to give a length that gives us actually a bit of a higher crop, knowing that potentially we may lose some, knowing that perhaps we go through a very dry growing season and we may have to cut down some crop on the ground if we cannot even supply enough water. So we can balance in the end the yield better if we start with a little more and finishing in the range that we like. So right now things, I have to say, they look fantastic. And we're going to start looking at the forecast this week. For example, we're going to go into the upper 70s, low 80s. Actually, last night we had a little bit of a frost in lower areas. We went around 31.5 degrees. Up here we were right at 38. No damage again. We're looking strong. And we had some very good rain last week, which actually is good because also I'm going to likely pick some morels this week. For those that are mushroom foragers, watch out. There's going to be an explosion of morels all over Virginia this coming week. And hopefully temperature don't get too hot, because morels, some people may not know, if they go through 2 consecutive days of temperature as a high above 80, the spores, they stop developing. And also if we go more than a couple of nights above 60 degrees at nighttime, that also ends the season of morel. A lot more difficult to find morels than growing grapes. So I'm gonna go probably tonight up in the Shenandoah to take a look at some morel spots I have up there, and I'll let you know next week if I find any. Other things on the farm that actually be good to take a look. I can show you the new vineyard. You saw the planting last week, actually 2 weeks ago. Since then, we have already put a tutor, a post. We have put a carton on the outside of the vine, and let's go see it. So here we are in the vineyard that recently you saw being planted, and now we installed these tutors, these pencil-sized steel rods, and inside we have our vine. And if you look in, actually, I can see the buds already growing. Let me move it, and here you see young tender bud, and then they will grow. And they will emerge from here. And in the summer, we're going to find a situation where we have 2 or 3 days overcast. We will remove these covers and allow them, therefore, to get more, to get gradually adapted to the intensity of the sun. They're partially shaded in here, so you don't want to remove these cartons in a very bright, hot, sunny day, because they may get a little bit of sunburn on the tissue, some scars. It will not kill them, but we just like to pamper them, like Fernando says all the time. They're my babies. And this is almost like a nursery, quite busy nursery, as you see. And this is only a few thousand vines of Petit Verdot. On the other side, we have over 15,000 vines between Petit Manseng and Pinot Grigio. So far we're very happy. A lot going on. We were actually very timely in doing our pruning. We already have our vineyard in the ground. They're starting to get some water from the soil. They're starting to bud break as well. We also have a bit of a window so we can dedicate our staff to establish our trellis system. These are going to be the posts that will go up every 7 vines. We're going to have one of these posts. These posts actually have a design. They have a design that allows for catching our wires. The wires will go in here, so they're called catch wires. The vegetation grows in, and actually like I said, every 7 posts, every 7 vine we have a post, and every 4 steel posts we're going to go with a nice pine post, very solid, to give very, very strong structure. You can imagine once the vegetation is growing up to 6 feet, if there is a strong wind, they act like a sail. So it's a tremendous push into the trellis, so it needs to be very, very strong. We installed over here big post in the ground, 3 feet in the ground. We're going to also put an anchor that gives the tension to the whole row, and it holds on our treasure into a wind. I have seen wind up here to a tropical storm years back, as much as 85 miles per hour. One row only in one position, lean down halfway, about 45 degrees. We were able to pull it up and reset it. So, very important, do your work right, prepare your soil right, plant at the right time, give good support to the growth of the shoots. And here we are establishing a new vineyard, and I talk to you later.